Welcome to The Explainer. Now, today, we're taking a close look at something so many of us struggle with, but honestly often feel completely helpless against. Listen, we are on a mission to beat bad hair genetics, period. And we're going to do it by unpacking this highly structured, science-based 5-level protocol for hair growth and density. This explainer is going to give you a proven roadmap to not just keep the hair you currently have, but actually dramatically improve its thickness and health. So get ready, because we're going to break this down step by step, approaching it kind of like a video game progression, starting with cheap, everyday tweaks and leveling up all the way to advanced medical interventions.
Okay, let's dive into this. As I mentioned, we'll be moving through 5 levels. Level 1 is daily habits. Level 2 covers nutrients. Level 3 is natural regrowth. Level 4 steps up to medical treatments. And finally, Level 5 is advanced interventions.
All right, kicking things off with Level 1. Daily hair habits.
Now, external habits are where we can make immediate, impactful changes tonight and for under $30. But first, we got to look at the worst offenders that are causing massive mechanical and chemical stress to your hair. Right off the bat, if you're using harsh shampoos loaded with sodium lauryl sulfate, you are chemically stripping away sebum. That's the natural protective oil that actually makes your hair shiny. Next up is hard water. If your shower water has over 120 parts per million of calcium and magnesium, you're essentially depositing a mineral film onto your hair every single time you wash it. That's why it feels like straw. Then there's heat. Blow drying too close, like less than 15 centimeters away, literally cooks the protein bonds in your hair. And if you use a 230 degrees Celsius straightener on wet or unprotected hair, oh man, just one single pass ruins your hair faster than a whole month of using bad shampoo. Finally, tight, wet ponytails. They physically pull your follicles right out at the root, causing 100% preventable traction alopecia.
But here is the good news. Check out these 2 incredible, practically free swaps you can make right now. So, hot water makes the tiny outer scales of your hair strands stick straight up, which leaves your hair looking completely dull and frizzy. A simple 10-second cold water rinse at the very end of your shower that flattens them right back down. Simple as that. And think about your pillowcase for a second. Sleeping on a cotton pillowcase is essentially sanding your hair against a rough fabric for a third of your entire life. It causes massive unnecessary friction. Swapping over to a $15 silk or satin pillowcase gives you 0 friction, totally saving your strands while you sleep.
Moving right along to Level 2, hair-building nutrients. Because look, external habits are fantastic, but if your internal chemistry is starved, none of that stuff really matters.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what I mean. Hair follicles are actually some of the fastest growing cells in the human body, which means they are incredibly demanding. They absolutely need iron to deliver a steady, constant supply of oxygen. And pro tip, pairing a source like red meat with vitamin C, like some bell peppers, helps your body actually absorb that iron. Then we have vitamin D. You see, your hair cycles through growth, rest, and shedding. Vitamin D is the literal biological signal that pulls your follicles out of their resting phase. Without it, from the morning sun or fatty fish, your hair just stays stuck in that resting phase and thins out over time. Zinc acts as a critical cofactor in the enzymes that physically build your hair structure, and you're best taking that as 15 milligrams of zinc picolinate for the best absorption. Lastly, vitamin B12, which you'll find in animal products, actually lengthens the active growth cycle of the follicle itself.
Now, I want you to remember this number. 0.8 is your daily protein target. Hair is mostly made of a protein called keratin, which is built from amino acids. You really need 0.8 grams of protein per pound of your body weight every single day. Why? Because from a biological standpoint, hair is not essential for human survival. If your body is deficient in protein, it will immediately deprioritize your hair just to keep your vital organs running.
Now, part of mastering your internal chemistry is knowing exactly what to avoid. High sugar, it spikes your insulin, which in turn increases the conversion of testosterone into DHT, a hormone that we'll talk about soon, but spoiler alert, it causes hair loss. And speaking of hair loss, those wildly popular beauty gummies you see everywhere, honestly, they are often a massive waste of money. Biotin really only helps if you are actually deficient in it, and less than 10% of adults are. But worse than that, those gummies often pack massive doses of vitamin A or selenium. Too much vitamin A will directly trigger hair shedding, and excessive selenium doesn't just cause shedding. A massive 30,000-person study actually linked oversupplementation of selenium to a 90% increase in prostate cancer. So yeah, definitely save your money there.
Okay, so let's say your baseline health is perfect. You're eating right, you're sleeping on silk. Let's step up to Level 3, natural regrowth methods. Once our foundation is locked in, we can start physically waking up dormant follicles without needing a prescription.
The absolute most powerful natural tool in your arsenal here is microneedling. When your follicles stall out, microneedling essentially forces a solution by rolling a 1 to 1.5 millimeter derma roller across your scalp in 3 directions, horizontally, vertically, and diagonally, for about 5 to 10 minutes once a week. You're creating tiny micro wounds. Now, this trauma forces a healing response that quite literally wakes up those dormant follicles. Plus, if you're applying any topical treatments, these tiny microchannels allow those treatments to absorb 4 times deeper into your scalp. It's an absolute game changer.
And hey, do not underestimate the power of your own hands. A truly fascinating 2019 study followed people doing just a simple 10-minute daily scalp massage using their fingertips, not their nails, just the fingertips, in small circles around the crown and temples. After 8 months, an amazing 75% of the subjects reported their hair loss had completely stopped. Why? Well, it turns out that chronic tension in your scalp muscles actually compresses the blood vessels feeding your hair. Massaging actively releases that tension and restores that vital blood flow.
We can also tap right into nature's pharmacy. If you're looking to maintain your hairline without the potential side effects of prescription drugs, saw palmetto actually blocks hair loss enzymes with almost 0 side effects. Now, it won't necessarily regrow a ton of hair, but it's great for keeping what you have. On the flip side, a 2015 study put just a couple drops of rosemary oil head-to-head against 2% pharmaceutical minoxidil over 6 months. The results? They showed incredibly similar hair count improvements. It's cheap, it's natural, and it is highly, highly effective.
But what if you've done all that and your genetics are still winning the battle? Well, it's time to bring in the heavy hitters. Let's move to level 4, medical regrowth treatments.
To really understand how medical treatments work, we have to formally introduce the biological villain of our story here, DHT, dihydrotestosterone. DHT is made directly from testosterone. It binds to your hair follicles, slowly suffocating them until they shrink, produce thinner and thinner hairs, and eventually die off completely. This exact mechanism directly explains why men, who naturally have higher testosterone levels, tend to go bald much faster than women.
So, obviously, the absolute crucial point here is figuring out how to block that DHT. We generally have 3 main options. Oral finasteride blocks the conversion enzyme entirely, stopping hair loss in 80 to 90% of men. It is highly effective, but there is a 1.8% risk of systemic side effects like lowered libido. Now, if that worries you, topical finasteride is absolutely the smartest starting point. It localizes the DHT block right at your scalp, giving you similar regrowth results while cutting that side effect risk in half. Finally, there's dutasteride. This one blocks 2 different forms of the enzyme, dropping your DHT by up to 95% and producing way more hair growth. But of course, the trade-off there is a higher risk of side effects.
Then, of course, we have minoxidil. Now, minoxidil works completely differently. It doesn't block DHT. Instead, it widens your blood vessels and artificially extends the hair's growth phase. Because of this, it stacks perfectly with your DHT blockers. However, here is the catch that a lot of people miss. Up to 60% of people's scalps actually lack the specific activation enzyme needed to make topical minoxidil work. For those people, switching to a low-dose oral minoxidil will provide much faster and far more reliable results.
Let's move to our final tier and see how this all builds to the ultimate solutions. Level 5, Advanced Interventions. This is for those needing serious surgical or experimental help.
But first, we have to expose the incredibly expensive scams floating around in this space. Low-level laser therapy caps, they often rely on highly skewed data. Believe it or not, their clinical trials often measure growth during the spring, literally right after the body's natural winter shedding phase ends, making the device look artificially effective. Then there's PRP, which costs up to $1,500 a session, and stem cell exosomes, which can run you up to $12,000. The crazy, mind-blowing truth, the clinical regrowth results for these massive investments are practically identical to the results you'd get from that $15 manual derma roller we talked about earlier. Seriously, save your money.
Now, for truly guaranteed results, we look to hair transplants. This procedure physically moves genetically DHT-resistant hair follicles from the back of your head right into your bald spots. They are amazing, totally life-changing procedures, but I really need to clarify the reality here. A transplant is absolutely not a one-and-done fix. Over 90% of patients who don't take level 4 drugs, like finasteride, end up losing the non-transplanted hair around the surgical site within just 4 years, and that ends up looking incredibly unnatural. You have to maintain it.
Finally, there's a fascinating, entirely experimental new frontier: Botox scalp tension therapy. This was actually discovered by a doctor who noticed his tension headache patients were magically regrowing hair.
The theory is that injecting Botox relaxes the perimeter muscles of the skull. This physical relaxation unpinches those suffocated blood vessels we talked about, letting oxygen flow freely back to the follicles. Small trials are currently showing a massive 75 to 80% response rate. It makes it a highly compelling, albeit expensive, future option.
So, what does this all mean for you? Genetics might deal the cards when it comes to hair loss, but as you've seen today, you have ultimate control over how you play the hand. From a $15 silk pillowcase to fixing your nutritional blind spots, all the way up to advanced medical science, the tools are there. I really encourage you to assess your own daily routine tonight and decide exactly how far up this 5-level protocol you need to climb to get the density you want. Keep learning, keep experimenting, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.